Oh,
Hello.
how are you doing, Greyson?
Okay, what's up?
Not too much when I catch up from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, um, look, right. Um, uh, Michael and I spent like, I don't know, 2 hours. I don't even know how long it was, discussing the future, given everything that has recently transpired. Um, Things leading up to the meeting with the judiciary, um, most of which kind of caught us very much off guard. Um, Following the numerous audits we supplied, and in addition to a number of other things that have sort of happened in the last 48 hours, including but not limited to, and let me know if I've already discussed this. Did we tell you about what happened with the Warden?
Yes.
Um, we
Yeah.
and this is, keep it confidential. It is now on recording that she didn't even know what she was coming in for. They just pre-voted her in and asked her, you do you want to be the warden? And the acceptance was purely because she already read the room and could tell that they were going to go through a list of folks and just throw them the keys. So out of fear of what might happen, she accepted.
They
And
really think that whoever's there is just a janitor keeping shit clean, right? That's Jesus.
yeah, we got a situation with TRT, et cetera, et cetera. Let me
Yeah, I
sort
mentioned
of,
that yesterday.
the biggest, I think, concern that we got, and this
Mm-hmm.
is not a testament. I hope you don't take this any more than what it is, right? Is we've now lived through, I think, 3 terms. We've seen Andy come and go. We've seen Pred attempt to come and go. We've seen Mumbles come and go. We've seen Princess, right? Which
Yep.
shockingly has been the most stable of the bunch. And notwithstanding some of the decision, that's including some of the decisions that might be questionable, like with Lumba. And so there has been this, given Saturday's meeting, a lot of fear, not necessarily in relation to what we believe you're capable of, right? But just how big of it's a challenge so big that even my current administration is starting to weaken at the knees. Not because of lack of energy, but just there is not the sheer manpower needed to battle is just, there's not enough, right? They press a button,
Yeah.
it takes 10 times the amount of force to revert just to keep things in place. We're not even talking about evolve things forward. And so we talked about some of the options that we had on the table. And those are the ones that we discussed. Did I share all those options with you? I don't know if talked about an overseer.
We talked. Yeah, we definitely talked about that. We talked about the senatorial kind of role, or
Yes.
I think when you were asking, if I was to take win the election and you guys to join my cabinet or whatever, what kind of role you would have, and which would, entitle you legally to act on my behalf. We talk about like an attorney general, maybe type
Yes.
position, right? So something titled that way, which would entitle you to, act and challenge legally the things that need challenging.
Precisely. And so we weighed all these options. And we went through a number of scenarios, taking our experience into play, what we have experienced, the practicality of it, etc., etc. And at the end of it, the realization was, we believe that it is in the best interest of our constituency for me to run for a 4th term. Oh, fuck. Come on.
You certain?
Yes.
Okay. When you announce, I'll step down publicly. I will endorse you. I think you both know that, like, I was
What?
going to step forward as a matter of, providing a adequate candidate to keep up the fight, but splitting the voting base would be horrendous.
That
You
is...
have a sense of duty, Greyson. I see that.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I'm not done.
Yeah.
That's not all I want. I want you to run with me as the deputy mayor. I want you
I
to...
appreciate that. I appreciate
Yes.
that, but there's a difference in between being the mayor and the deputy mayor, right? The mayor would be a challenge for me, and that's one of the things that I wanted out of this. I wanted the challenge of it. I've been a judge when we did 90% of the mayor's job. I've done this, I've done a lot of this before. I would rather do the job I'm doing now as a judge than be a deputy mayor. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat that for you. That is what
Understood.
it is. I'd rather take murder trials than, the job that the deputy mayor does.
I want to lay out the vision we had. And I'm hoping you reconsider based on this. I believe that it is the responsibilities of the Los Santos County Mayor is significantly a larger challenge than the Blaine County Mayor will ever be. At the end of the day,
Agreed.
they will sort of, they'll do their thing, but generally speaking, most of what occurs is in the hands of the Los Santos County Mayor. And I want you to run. This city needs you to run. But what we have found is very similar to the position, and I think this is what I think is a problem within the judiciary today, which is there's no training. There's only you, really. And you've done your time training folks. And I think we're, as a part of that larger conversation that myself and Michael had yesterday, is when a mayor change occurs, and I think this is something that was learned very difficultly by Pred, for example. Now, I want to make one thing very clear. What happened to Pred was bad, but he did a lot of that to himself. He didn't listen to the advice we gave him. How to keep him... There's certain ways that you need to move. I don't mean any kind of sus way, but like there's certain things that you need to... that you're not going to... There's going to be landmines you're not going to see. And he stepped on those landmines.
No, he does on purpose, though. Fred's always been I dare you, come after me. Right? And that...
Yes.
Yeah.
Mumbles stepped on some of those landmines. Now, some of the outcome of that, it wasn't really seen, I think, mostly as a consequence of... you had things happening, so, you had to step down. Princess is starting to step on some of them, but I think she's been open to guidance. Where I'm going with this is the big reason we want you a part of this cabinet is that we want you there experiencing each and everything that we do, so that all these conversations, one that, me and Michael are in, you are a part of those equally, so that when the time comes, you take that mantle and you got all the tools necessary. And I want to make this very clear. This is not an attempt to indoctrinate, but we want you fully prepared.
I get that. Here's the thing. I don't see, and this is no discredit to you two, because I think the work you're doing is amazing, right? I don't see the situation being any better in 3 months' time than it is today. The things that I see on the horizon are probably going to make it worse. I don't like if you're not ready to hand over the reins now. I think in 3 months you're going to be saying, Time to go for number 5 because we have to.
God damn it. Ah. Hmm.
The fight doesn't end. The fight is eternal, right? But I literally, even if you push through all the legislation about reining in the DOJ and, you know, putting a scope around their powers that needs to occur, not that we need, that we want, or that would be nice, that needs to occur for a functional society. Even if all that happened, they're not going to roll over and die. They will make aggressive political appointments, and I'm talking about political appointments in amongst their own judiciary, in amongst the justice levels. That will mean that the fight has to continue harder and harder and harder because that's what they're going to do, right?
I disagree. And I think the reason is as follows. I think, first and foremost, that's why we want you a part of the fight. And to see what that fight looks like. Because there's two things. One is it's 1,000% correct that, hey, the fight is going to continue. The fight's never going to change. But what their punches look like, you know, how it looks like in the dressing room, all that is very important to see. But I think there's a second part of this, right? The fight never ends. So the first is, yes, the fight absolutely doesn't always end. So we want you prepared. But the second is, based on that meeting with the governor, I agree that the current justices, their disposition is not going to change. However, the governor has provided very clear outline how all that can change. To enumerate over some of them, constitutional amendments. Number 2, the possibility of pulling the marshals and the DOC, specifically the marshals, from underneath the DOJ. What that means is you have an entity who can function as an agency that has people like Barrett who aren't afraid to go and ACR and impeach people when they are stepping out of line or being derelict. Not because of how often they're on duty, but their lack of actually completing the necessary work.
The constitutionality checks within a 72-hour period, it takes 5 minutes to do.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 1,000%. Right. The third, the next, the other thing that was iterated over was that, via legislative change, we can, in theory, appoint the justice. And this is actually the latest cook that we've had. And I'm not saying we're baked on this. This is, you know, peer reviewed. Is if hypothetically we write up legislation, Princess signs it, that 5th seat or the number of seats may not be something that the DOJ themselves determine. It can become a state law because that is inherently not a judicial matter, right? Now, would it go up for a contest? Sure. But why would the mayors not nominate a justice and that individual be democratically elected? An election that could be made by non-felons even. And now there's a justice in place that is not only voted in, but becomes an advocate for the people. It breaks the good old boys club. And now that it's
Would not be
actually,
the best place for me.
well, as we kind of talk about this, maybe that's actually makes more sense that maybe you do not run.
Because flat out, like I know you say like I've trained enough, and like here's the other thing. Like 2 weeks ago, Nino, we were on a phone call. You called me after you saw me tweeting about how many lawyers were around. I was talking about running law schools again. I'm always ready to do that, right? At the drop of a hat, always. Literally talking today with other people about the need for them to be pushing along with those things because it needs to happen. We need more lawyers. We need more. A justice, somebody who'd write internal procedure on bar reviews, on ethical compliance, on training mechanisms for
Oh
magistrates
my
when they're elected into
God!
position.
Wait a minute.
On the things we talk about, how procedures for how magistrates become judges. A justice who could provide that kind of internal paperwork and accountability, I think, would be probably as important as anybody sitting in the mayor's position. Because we both know 90% of the problems in the city is because the DOJ is cooked and they don't know what they're doing.
Are we, am I reading you correctly? Is that you don't run and we put you on the ballot for the next justice?
You do that and I will, I'll put everything in that. This has been my home and what I wanted to do.
Holy shit!
For years.
Hold up.
I've been a justice before. I am as competent as anybody currently hired in the DOJ. They need some oversight. They need somebody who has the position and the authority to instill change, right? Now, you can't do it all unilaterally, but at least if you've got the rank, you can start setting up procedures, and then people have got to at least give you a fucking reason why they don't want to follow them. And regardless if I'm a justice or not, I still want the county bar associations. I want that splitting. I want it offshot. I want the lawyers outside of the DOJ because, of the conflict of interest there.
Already started.
Good. I think it's important. I think it's essential.
Holy shit.
Like I said to you, Nino, yesterday, and you, Michael, on the island, like, regardless of what this is, we're fairly well politically aligned, right? And the fight needs fighting, and us knowing which lanes to fight it in is probably as important as fighting the fight at all.
Oh my God, this is, we need to start before the election even, Michael. Like, starting with the, while even Princess is in place, like, let's get that conversation started immediately. Or fuck the conversation. Let's get the document for the appointment of the 5th seat.
I mean, it'll be on your desk tomorrow morning.
I'd like to bring Princess here. Any objections?
None from me.
None.
Hello?
Can you come down to the court center by yourself?
Yes, I can.
All right. I know
I'll
that
be
sounds
there.
ominous.
It does sound ominous, but I mean, okay, I'll be there.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you in a bit. We're on the back where the moonshine things are. Go up the stills. You'll see the promenade overlooking the city.
This is actually probably the
I
best view
don't
in
know
the
where the
city.
stills are, but I'm sure I'll find you.
Okay. See you in a bit.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
I think it's the lit up airport.
Yeah.
I think like the lights down there, and Del Perro Pier. It's just stunning.
Oh man, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this really feels like it's actually coming together. There's no feeling sorry for any of them this term. Even last term, I was reserved.
Yeah, like Nino, I don't want to say it. Like, it felt like you were pulling your punches a little bit, like you didn't want to tread on toes.
I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
There's
that just speaks well of you, right? That shows what kind of human being you are.
Yeah. I guess I just never expected some of the things to be just said so brazenly. You know, you kind of expect people that take these roles, they do it because they say, I want to be a difference.
I think that's true when people work for it, right? Like, so for me, I was an attorney for a full year in Los Santos before anybody approached me with a major job opportunity, right? Like, I was an attorney, and then I got offered the district attorney's role. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just prosecute. I'd seen the district attorneys come and go, and they just all got burned out and miserable. I didn't want to do it. Turned the job down. I walked away. I was going back into private practice. And then I got approached about, a spot on the bench. But I'd worked for a year to get there. How many of these people have worked for a year before they made it justice? If you haven't earned it, if you haven't put in the work, if you're just picked by your social clique, then what is this? How can you not just feel entitled to the power granted to you? It's not about public service at that point, right? It's about ego and self gratification.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, Princess is on the way. Some other things that we discussed. I think that a big part of why the senator notion was sort of tabled is the recognition that, based on what the governor stated, there isn't necessarily a need. Now, it's not to say that the governor having a hand that acts as sort of like a filter wouldn't be useful to him, right? I think it would. However, it is more that but that the system, that the way that he believes it should work, and as we understand it should work, actually functions exactly. Everyone is held accountable because ACRs and impeachments should be regular, and that these audits and the way that the two mayors democratically are able to push things forward should already effectively work. And to be honest, we just didn't press hard enough. To be fair, we didn't push as hard as we did either. So
when you have a monolith of a DOJ standing there saying, no, that's not the way it works, that's not the way, actively gaslighting people about what the reality is, it becomes harder, right? I get that. Like, because you doubt yourself. You're like, is that how it works? Are they right? Is this really strange, esoteric, interpretation of the Constitution the right one? But then you push, the governor comes in and enlightens everybody, and it's like, oh no, we were right. They've just been lying to us for months.
Yeah. Or even worse, right? If you know that they're lying, and what are you supposed to do? Because that means there's no conversation. Like, imagine, you know, we talk, you know, you're telling me that that's a piece of cheese sticking from a string. Big start. The fuck are we gonna, you know, and that you've seen it and you've tasted it. Trust me, bro. How do you even begin that conversation?
You are not wrong. I was actually really hopeful when you and Pred were both elected. I thought that, you know, Pred would have the fight in him to do this alongside you. The speed in which it all fell apart was alarming.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't all the DOJ with that. It's if I have to be honest. But I also do not blame Pred from necessarily losing faith, right?
Yeah.
And I think a part of that is what has compelled me so hard, because Pred is not a pushover, right? Oh, I think I heard a vehicle come on up.
Yeah, I thought I heard something. Things I should tell you. I've had a lot of talks internally with the LSPD. I was kicking tires and, you know, just doing my due diligence. Everybody loves Turner. Everybody I've asked has basically listed Turner as 1 or 2 for who should be chief of police right now.
That's very good. I had some very honest conversations with him the other day, too. Actually, Peters as well. Pointing at how important it is that his captains are being heard, I guess.
Hi, Princess.
Hi. Nice spot you got here.
Yeah. So, Princess,
I don't like how you all turned at the same time. That was too in sync. Yeah, what's up?
well, here is, with everything that's happened recently, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of discussion, and, to bore you, to not, so as not to bore you with the details, I'm going to be running for a 4th term.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right. So how's that gonna work out? Now you have to bore me with the details.
Well, the first line of action that we are looking to start tomorrow, well, other than putting the application in, is a piece of state legislation that allows myself, yourself, and the future mayors to nominate a sitting judge. We can talk about details about the rest of it, like if a magistrate or whatever could potentially, but we'll keep it simple for now. A judge is nominated for a election to become the next justice. That nominated justice is not only nominated by the democratically elected mayors, but because it is voted in by the people, it is inherently a justice for the people, right?
Right.
And so while the remaining judiciary may claim that they're not politically aligned or whatever, everyone's biased. That ensures that there is a level of dissent, let's call it. And they can act as a democratic observer in the judiciary. There is no hiding at that point, right? And what better person, once this goes through, than Mr. Greyson over here?
figured that much. That sounds great. How sure are you that this will work?
All I know is that conglomerate is more dangerous than any threat in this state.
Yeah.
And I don't want to I don't want to minimize the impact of victims from the plague, victims of the faceless, victims
Oh, you're
of
right.
I look at them and I'm like, that's a much greater threat.
Yeah, for sure.
Because even the
I guess-
faceless uses Twata, and Dr.
Yeah.
Smith does talk. These people don't even exist.
When they do, they're making stupid decisions like placing the warden for no reason.
Yeah.
I am all for it. I guess my only concern, like I said, with how sure you are that it will work, is that if it doesn't, then well, now you're stuck in another term with another
Oh,
failing DOJ, and Greyson loses his shot.
I don't think I don't think we can know for sure, right? We just know that we can try. And I think that's not the only shot we're firing. There's the I think the audits are going to make a very big impact. I think
Yes.
the notes that Michael is making from the governor meeting, which will be reviewed by him as a means to say, is this what was said by you
Oh,
for
thank
clarity?
goodness.
And that way we immediately subvert this whole, well, the governor said that we're God. And we're all
Yep.
standing around like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, and they're all five of them are like, yeah, we talked about it, like, you know, in Bermuda, and that's what we heard. You know what I mean?
They might as well still be in Bermuda.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. And so
People go to disappear.
I think this last term, there was a lot of things I wanted to do, but I held back punches. And now there will be no punches held back. I want this criminal code to like clear criminal code. I want to work with you. I want to let's
There's
talk about
definitely
how
some
to
issues already,
simplify Sorry?
I was gonna say, yeah, the penal code changes. There's definitely already just so much, just too much. It's like confetti.
Oh, absolutely. I want to work with you to we have like 80 pieces of legislation. We want to
Yeah.
think about how to reassemble it and make it more legible. Let's bring the 80 to 30, right? So they're more
that idea.
compendiums, right, of categories.
Absolutely.
And like
I think it'll be, you know, I think you and I working together as two mayors will be, I guess, a force to be reckoned with.
yeah.
I think that, you know, the DOJ has benefited from the fact that, and again, I said this before, but it's somewhat my fault, but the DOJ has absolutely benefited from the fact that I have not reached out to you to work together. And
I agree.
now I think if we can continue to put both of our signatures on legislation, and especially if we can get Grayson into, you know, the judiciary, although that sounds like kind of hell for you, Grayson, so, you know.
It's the fight I want to have. This is the fight, right? Like, cause here's the thing, like Nino said, I think the justice level position right now is the greatest threat to our democracy. We underwent a referendum, right? A revolution, even almost a year ago, and we formed a more perfect union, right? We formed a more perfect society than we had before, with more separation of powers. But we had a judiciary that clung to power and refused to give it up, and refused to acknowledge the leadership of, you know, the federal government. And they've just clung and clung and clung. And if we don't institute change, there'll be blood in the streets again. And we can't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
So you're on board with this idea?
100%. The second Nino said he wanted to run again, I will publicly endorse him and step aside. Because somebody needs
Okay.
to do the fight, and dividing us makes us weaker.
Yeah. I do feel like, again, like, I do not envy your position, Grayson, because you're going to be, like, in battle, we call it the scrum. You're going to be behind enemy lines, hacking it every direction.
It is a battlefield I know because it's something I've done and I have more experience with than anybody else there currently. I am
Yeah,
fine.
100%.
I like, this is a fight in my own backyard. This is a comfortable place to be.
In that case, I am absolutely on board. I mean, I would have, if there was a way to, you know, get Grayson into justice position earlier, that would have been an obvious choice for me. Actually, any of
Absolutely.
you three, although I imagine that you would hate it.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
How's that retirement looking, you guys?
I think that was stripped away on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it kind of funny that I've literally established the Royal Court of Blaine County and I'm still more democratic than they are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Michael, could you could you tell because you're better at recalling details than I am. Princess and Grayson, could you tell him what don't reveal the source for, because I don't know if he wants, but what was stated by Weiss today?
Oh my god. You mean what, the penal code? That one?
No, why they have to control it all.
Because they're the only ones with the ability to do what they do. There's no one fit in the city to be a justice outside of the four in that room.
I want to throw each of them off the building. A tall building.
I can do
They're
what they do. I can
incompetent.
do what they do. Watch this.
Are you sleeping?
I can highlight specific instances, at least 4 or 5 from each individual there that should have had them impeached for incompetence.
Yeah.
The
100%.
wildness of that statement is absolutely mind-boggling.
This, mind you, was a response to themselves. The question was posed: do you not realize you're the executive, judicial, and legislative branch? They said no. And then came the realization, oh yeah, we are. And then came the response that Michael gave, which
That they needed to be. That they were the only ones who could be trusted with that authority.
One of them
Question
has
by
more
who?
mistrials than trials.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't even know if a single person trusts them.
Would any of them win an election right now?
No.
Which brings it to the next thing. Simultaneous to this release, we had contemplated, there is someone, her name is escaping me right now, does a lot of surveying.
Signy.
Yes.
Leon.
Love her. Been trying to get to work with her for a long time.
Imagine instead of a ballot, we put up a satisfaction survey.
Oof.
Vote of public vote of no confidence?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oof.
I think we know how that would go.
While it may not set any, it would provide a strong backing as to why it needs to happen. It may not provide any sort of like legal action, but it would be very good. It's not like we need propaganda, but it'd be really good evidence to attach to the reasons why it needs to happen.
Public opinion is very powerful.
How's your street team? How's your street team for a campaign run? You know, you got people ready and good to go? Literally, if I was you, I'd have people running the streets, getting signatures on an active petition to say that people are disinvested and unhappy with the justices currently. Like they're currently still actively under impeachment, right? a massive petition saying the
Are they?
people, the streets say. As far as I went, a ruling hasn't been made
I
yet,
thought
right?
that, well, a ruling wasn't made, but the governor basically just said, like, okay, you know, impeachment doesn't really make sense here, and so instead we're going to have a discussion on. He kind of implied that it was an instead thing, like we're just going to
Oh.
discuss how to change things in the future, but then,
I had a
to be
conversation with
honest,
Barrett after, and Barrett was kind of under the impression that, you know,
he said
decisions were still pending.
he said he'd look over the impeachment papers, but kind of gave the impression that it was just going to be a kind of, okay, let's just do this again, try to do better this time.
I was under the impression, and I was under the same impression, but I was told by onlookers that he said no one's going to get impeached today, but there's a lot of things that I still need to look at.
Yeah.
That's what Barrett
I
said to
heard.
me. Yeah.
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 So I was like, while they're actively on impeachment, imagine just running that, right? Like saying how many signatures. Like, you know, it's 50 to change the law, right? Or to at least attempt to change the law. What if you got 100 signatures? What does that say? You know, just run it. See how many signatures you can get. It'd be kind of amusing, especially if you're going to do a public like vote too.
Honestly, bring
Very
on the
true.
pickets. I think so. I hope you guys are right about the impeachment stuff, because it kind of felt hollow after everything happened, and it was kind of. I was almost ready to put like another impeachment on Weiss for the whole Yui situation.
I actually pick a little photo of my phone. Okay. You know, it's funny you say that, because about 24 hours later, there was a jailbreak today.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear about that, yeah. I also heard from the lifers that apparently Yui asked them what the protocols were for certain DOC things, because she didn't know them herself.
Oh, well, here's the tea.
He also, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have a recording. Now, keep this close. What happened was they voted for her, then called her in and said, hey, can you be the warden?
But wait, if they all voted for her, then why is she still interim?
No, can you be the interim warden?
Right.
She recognized what was happening. 1 second. The voting records pulled, so we know how. Wait. Apparently, in said conversation, Weiss also stated that they should pull the voting records so that they know how every single citizen voted. What the fuck?
Bruh.
Bruh.
Oh my god.
You're lying, right?
What does the Constitution say about your right to privacy?
Oh my god.
You should tell him.
I'm. Oh my. No.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so the way that we've sort of, now keep in mind that some of it is speculative, some of it is like, there's a lot of information here gathered together.
Okay.
But from the sound of it, based on the so at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a vote came up for should Yui be the interim warden. The justices that were at the meeting made that. 7 p.m. Eastern is when our meeting took place.
And remember, Weiss said at the meeting, he was like, oh, well, we already decided on the new warden, but we don't want to bore the governor with the details, so we're just going to tell you tomorrow.
Yep.
They hadn't decided yet.
And so, yeah, they just gave it to her. The reason why she accepted is she loves the place. And she could tell by the way that they were moving was that they were just going to pick anybody. And so if she didn't take it, she was worried who they would give it to next.
That's understandable.
I've been running for mayor for 3 days, and I've done more due diligence on the LSPD and who should be the chief of police than they did about the warden. What the fuck are we doing?
And also, I don't understand, if they did a vote, why did they still make her the interim warden? They've had an interim warden for like 9 months. And Yui took a longer leave of absence than Gary did. And yet they said he was negligent or something. He wasn't around enough. The lifers are all very upset about it.
The hypocrisy is hilarious, though,
It really
right?
is.
Like, who are
yeah,
they to
she didn't-
judge?
They had to, like, tell Yui that chemicals aren't contraband anymore because she was confiscating chemicals which haven't been contraband for, like, 3 months.
Then, as for why Gary was removed, there was some incident that needed his attention. The justices told the marshal that you need to go tell him he's going to get ACR'd if he doesn't show up in the next 10 days. He was
10
told
days
this on
hasn't
day
passed.
3. And so that marshal didn't even know why. He had to act on behalf of the justices.
10 days haven't even passed yet.
Correct. It was only 3 days in that happened.
And also, when the warden can't respond to an incident, who's supposed to respond to it? The deputy warden also wasn't around. But no one bat denied that.
And so allegedly...
Can you provide context here, Nino? Like,
Yes.
literally, did they bum rush this decision purely to get it done before the governor was here?
Yeah.
So it
Oh,
looked like
yeah.
they've done something. That's it.
Oh,
Exactly
that's what I was
it is.
They
implying.
didn't even do it before the governor was here. They did it after.
Mm,
No, it was
Because
at the start of the meeting. It was right before.
Oh, but they voted at the start of the meeting, but they didn't actually talk to Yui until afterwards.
Correct.
That makes sense.
You know, yeah. And did I tell you what conversation was overheard about the penal code? Oh boy, man, I've been lamenting to so many people. So, you know, before you went away, before you left, me and Weiss were talking because he said, "Hey, just talk to me if you have problems with the penal code." He wanted to enumerate and discuss each and every one of the 150 changes, and I'm like, brother,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
insane. He said he didn't have documentation, whatever, right? Like, oh, the clerk hasn't. It got into a fucking. It was. I at the end found the closest middle ground, and I said that what we can do is me and my team and Princess will come together. We'll like figure out what needs to change. So you see what was before, what happened in February, and what we're recommending, and notate on the side, like, here's why. And every single one of the changes that we agree on, that you're cool with, we'll pass them. Everything that we disagree with, we'll come and talk about that segment that's being disagreed on.
Yeah.
He's like, and that was the end of the discussion. This guy and Hart foolishly in a room with people that like either work for me or have worked for me in front of them said, I'm not doing anything with that penal code stuff that Nino's working on. So, and I found out literally the next morning. So they're just, can you imagine, Princess? We spend the next week cooking, hoping that shit's going to happen. And they've already like given us false pretenses. Fuck them.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I hope that this plan, I imagine that it will not change the plans that Greyson had talked about originally, to hopefully separate the marshals and the DLC from the DOJ.
yeah, 100%.
So you think we're still gonna try to get that to
That
happen?
amendment already went in, right?
The
The request for
audit, yeah.
Yeah,
The audit,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, well, that's
Okay.
the opening in the conversation, right? It's the opening salvo.
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure that happens, and yeah, I think that was the most important one. In my
Absolutely.
mind.
I think county bar associations as well, Princess. I think that was an important one too.
Oh, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I think a lot of the legislation, Nino, that is in the system, would be very easy for us to, you know, if it's not something that has to be different for Blaine County and Los Angeles County, there are certain ones where I'm like, I don't know why Blaine County hasn't just signed on to it because it just makes sense.
I agree.
And has like separate, like slightly different legislation.
Well, I was also thinking, like, for example, right? There are certain things that can be like for example, we have 2 election ones now. We can combine them. We have, you know, there's like, and I want your input on this, right? Like, I don't want to be overly pushing on this.
100%, that makes sense.
So, like, there's hunting and fishing, there's lumber, there's...
Well, the lumber one's going to be gone very soon.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
So, hypothetically, let's say it still existed, right? And then I've got some on there, too, like Hunting Act. I got, you know, So, like, we could take all those and find a way to put it into more of a compendium. So those 6
100%.
turn into a 1.
With the regulations, you probably want to tie in things like all the licensing legislation, because there's like a million of those. You know, one for guns, one for hunting.
Yes.
If you put it all together, it all makes sense together.
Yeah. So effectively, whether you're a citizen, whether you're law enforcement, you're going into the thing that logically makes sense, and you see everything in there. And
yeah, absolutely.
because, yeah, right now you can't even, when you load up this MDT, I don't know what the hell's going to happen like a year from now. You load up this MDT, it doesn't even load up half the legislation sometimes.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and also, other thing that I forgot to mention, though, I imagine this won't change, the idea of trying to amend the Constitution, specifically the right to property, so that we can do something about derelict houses. That was Greyson. Greyson told me about that idea, but I still think that
was one thing I was going to push on. Yeah, I think it's just the no squatter stuff, but you know, ramped up, right? When you listen to the facts and the numbers Barrett has about the amount of just totally abandoned properties where somebody is just mailing in a check, at some point, some form of eminent domain legislation makes sense. That you buy it back at, you know, a fair market price, like everything else. But, you know, there shouldn't be 100 houses out there or properties in general that just are of no use to anybody. You know, they just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I know the thing we've struggled with no squatters, right, is that we're kind of beholden to people responding to Nino's state announcements.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see these houses that as you said, right, they mail in a check. Sometimes it's impossible to get a hold of those people, right?
Oh, exactly, right. But here's the thing: if they're unavailable, if the houses are just left derelict, if they are literally sending in checks from out of state to pay, you know, for asset fees, like with the forensic accounting that Barrett does, with him checking who's paying taxes, with him checking who's like, you know, even stopping by to get a burger while they're paying their asset fees.
Yeah,
it becomes a very easy argument to make that these houses are derelict. They're falling into disrepair. The state needs them. Or, you know, if not the state, the counties need them. Let's, you know, seize them, resell them, improve everybody's life who's actually living here.
Yeah.
100%.
I get the sentiment. I think you'll also appreciate that it would be quite a sensitive thing to legislate as well.
I agree. And that's why I think it would require a constitutional amendment to at least provide limits on the right to own property, right? Because that's the issue. Right? There's a constitutional argument there.
That's exactly where I was going.
But I also think if you put that up to a public referendum, you'd get 90% of the people voting yes, because they all want the right to buy a house.
Yeah.
I think there is I definitely
you just have
support
to see
that.
how popular these you know, lotteries Nino is running off, right? Like that, it's
Yeah.
such a good idea because it's so necessary.
Yeah.
And we've been the BBL, Blaine Business Leaders, has been offering properties for businesses in Blaine County, and almost all of them we've now had to split into multiple businesses per property. So we've got like a wall down the middle if there's 2 doors, and then we're planning on, and this stays here because Delver wants to deliver the news for all these, but there were 2 groups wanting to start law firms, and so Delver decided to give them both the same building so they can have competing law firms right next to each other.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, on the topic of law
firms.
if I may pick I guess everyone's brain in this instance, right? We all know that Danielson did some level of work on this severing of the bar association. He's proposing 2 separate county bar associations, right?
Yeah.
Is that necessary is my question. Could it be a joint overseen singular bar association?
It could, of course it could, right? You could look at it that way. I think the point was, specifically when this was written, it was I think it was like around the time where there was still like active jurisdictional tension between the LSPD and the BCSO.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, pushing jurisdictional differences and a culture difference between, you know, say a Blaine County Bar Association and a Los Santos would just be good for Blaine County.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think Los Santos thrives regardless. I think Blaine County could do with it. I think it would help Blaine County.
Yeah, it's possible. I feel as though, I mean, just in terms of culture, lawyers, you know, or law-related things already are not, I wouldn't say Blaine County strong suit. I mean, it's a lot of, and I've definitely, you know, been hit with this face first, is that Blaine County is very don't tread on me kind of population. A lot of people who see anything related to, you know, government or law, or they see any government as an infringement on their rights. And generally, lawyers are big city people who, you know, come to the north and try to advertise for, you know, pay money so you can have someone do sleazy talk, you know?
Yeah.
That actually fits pretty well, to be honest. With my understanding. I learned Barrett lives up there. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think Lily was decorating his house.
Yep.
Barrett's a Blainer.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. There are some people who live in Blaine County, but like, do they live in Blaine County, you know?
I think that is actually one of the biggest issues, to be honest, which is a lot of people own assets simply to how are we gonna put it, like
store guns.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. Little did they know they could just make them float on the water.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Holy shit.
Perfect stash location.
Oh my god.
So I'm not going to have time for a massive debrief this evening, unfortunately. But before I walk away, with both the mayors present, what is the direction you want me to take with this bar association? Do you want it to be a... Go ahead, Nino.
I think we first, stepwise is important. I love the bar association thing. But I think, as I've seen how we functioned in the past, is we have to make sure we properly pull each branch one at a time. And I think that first one is filling that 5th seat.
Yeah.
Top down. 100%.
Of course. Yeah. That's going to be on your desk in the morning.
Okay.
That one I don't have questions about. I bring up the bar because the bar I have questions about.
Gotcha.
You'll get them in the sequence you want. Trust me.
Okay.
So with you both here, what makes sense? Do you think there needs to be independent county level bar associations? Should it be joint oversight?
I don't think Blaine County has the resources or facilities to have an active bar association separate from Los Santos County, and I think that it would just end up probably being very underutilized.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I get the whole culture thing, but I think Blaine County, the culture of Blaine County is limited by the fact that people can't stay in Blaine County.
Mm.
Until we get, like food court and car dealership up in Blaine County, everyone's going to be, at least 10% Los Santos County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah. I think it being like jointly operated makes sense.
Yeah.
What the mechanism, so let's use a hypothetical. Who would operate the bar association?
Well, I would view it similarly to the appointment of the PD, where the mayors are empowered to appoint a head of the bar.
Yeah, no, and I recognize that, but I mean, like today, who's gonna run it?
Yeah.
And I say it in that fashion because, like, at some level, we're gonna need to. It's important that we at least have an idea in our mind what that would look like, and who that person would be. And I think that's one of the grandest challenges that we have is there's like 3 active lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do they have the experience? I mean, we've gone so long without this, we're now in a really bad spot. I mean, we could,
really bad.
Yeah. So like, who's going to train them? You know what I mean? But maybe it's a board.
Guys, hear me out. Blaine County's most experienced lawyer, Norman Bones.
Crazy.
He used to be my mentor.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, he's the first
Holy
lawyer
shit.
I ever met in Los Santos. He invited me, he showed me around, told me who to learn from, who not to learn from. Yeah.
Wow. That means he's like a good lawyer. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Glad I put so much work into those tax forms.
Oh my God. That is my biggest holdup, if I'm gonna be honest, is that, which is
we have a dearth of senior attorneys. We just do.
Mhm.
It's grim. It's really grim. But sometimes you just gotta give somebody a shot and see if they're ready and see if they're able to do it. I mean, who's the most active? Tony?
Tony, probably. I mean, probably like Paul Hammerstein, but I wouldn't say.
He's like 0-11.
Paul's
right now.
overworked and severely overcooked because of how overworked he is right now.
Yeah. And also, he's like kind of more. I don't know, I wouldn't say that he really belongs in control of the bar. Maximilian Angel. Because he's a bartender.
Oh, there you go. I think that's the bit I think we should try to internally figure out so we know what that recipe would kind of look like,
Yeah.
And yeah.
But again, like we get somebody into a justice position who can provide paperwork and guidance on how, just like not run it for them, but to just give them a poke in the right direction, who'd be around to do that. Yeah. It's all suffering right now, Nino. You know it is.
Who's doing it today? Like, isn't that Sean Danielson?
So currently, when they're giving out bar licenses and such, whichever judge gives it out, if it's a probationary license, they're kind of like on the hook to keep oversight over that individual. But that then stops them taking the cases of that probationary attorney. It's a horrible conflict of interest issue, which basically means if you're around enough to hire an attorney, you now can't take their court cases, even though you've probably got the best oversight inline, scheduling nature with that attorney. It's a shit show. It doesn't work. It does not work.
There's a couple of police officers that have law background, aren't there? Can't think of them, but I know that there are. But
There's a
would
few.
that be a conflict?
I feel like
And they've
bias?
generally been trained to be prosecutors, not defense attorneys, right? So,
Yeah.
That's true.
I feel like the biggest challenge is the having someone who passionately wants to develop up lawyers.
yeah.
Which I would say could be Tony, except that he's. I mean, maybe this would be like the rejuvenating thing, but he's been basically on his last legs in terms of.
But
Yeah.
so is everybody who's interfaced with this Department of Justice.
That's true.
I mean, everybody's burned out, right? Everybody's over it.
Yep. Not everyone has a gang to join.
I think we should cook on that. I think that's an important piece to kind of figure out, because we can throw the legislation up and then it's just like, well, now we're on the hook to make it work. And unfortunately, it's important that something like that, without a full fleshed out plan, we don't want to put that out there, and then it makes us look incapable with these other big things. Like, well, this didn't work, so what makes you think everything else is going to work? You know what I mean?
It's like having a
Right.
Department of Corrections and not being able to decide who the warden is, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, maybe we just got to be like, oh, what do you mean? It's working. Look, the same 2 lawyers are still around for 6 months.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
I think the real takeaway for me is that I think the pool of lawyers is so shallow, right?
Yes.
Solely because of the degradation of public trust in the legal system and in the judiciary, right? And I almost wonder if, as necessary as it is to pull the Bar Association out from the purview of the DOJ, I don't even know that that's something that happens next month, because I think that faith in the system needs to be restored before a bar association being repatriated to the counties even matters.
Just the visual of having an accountable, democratically elected justice should help with the faith in the system, right?
I agree.
And then if whoever it is can like implement systemic change there, training, maybe just refresh the pool a little bit and then push when it's a little healthier. That makes sense.
I just realized, too, like, remember that court case you went to, Greyson? The raid on Letson.
Yeah.
Now, they threw out the warrant on his house. There's a lot.
Did
that
they
was
make
bad.
that decision?
Wait, I thought they did.
Oh, I mean, like, flat out, McNee was hinting that's the way we're going to do. They did make a ruling, said they were going to make a ruling later. I don't know if it's actually been ruled on yet, but they were hinting at it. They were hinting that's the way it's going to go, because all the raid warrants right now are dog shit.
Ooh, actually, McNeil wrote a really nice response here. Wait, 6 p.m. This leads me. We alluded, blah, blah. Warrant is overturned, and as such, any evidence found or used in the product is declared inadmissible. Oh my God! Wait, I just realized Weiss is the same guy that introduced.
Good faith.
Yes, the good faith doctrine. And I
But it
was
never
like,
went
and I
in,
pulled him
yeah.
aside, and I'm like, "Are you crazy? Like, you know what that means, right? Like, that's not good for San Andreas." And he just didn't understand. And so now, when I look at this goes counter to Weiss's ruling.
I mean, look, that Marcus Wade trial, every time Weiss comes up, that Marcus Wade trial, he literally just misread second-degree murder, and then without the judicial power to do so, descaled the charge to manslaughter. Like, Weiss is cooked. He doesn't know what he's doing.
So the reason I brought this particular case up is imagine how the cops felt.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, bad warrant, right? But that's why it should be checked. There's a problem with their command, but also with the judge that checked it, right? That sort of stuff has to be so solid.
Did you know who signed that one?
No.
It was Falconer. It wasn't a judge.
Oh,
What?
Yeah, Falconer signed that.
that's a noob.
I think the justices need to be judges. Like I'm not trying to be a dick. It's just like a justice needs to be like you're cracked out on understanding what's happening.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like this is
You
just
should be the expert, right? You shouldn't make these foundational mistakes.
Well, because I don't think they realize that this is essentially what they're supposed to be. They are like justices are judges. I mean, if you take like
Yes.
I don't know, like America,
90% of
they're
their job
basically
should be judging. Yeah.
yeah, and the other 10% should be judging constitutionality. Every case law is a result of judging. They shouldn't be legislating otherwise, and every bit of legislation that they do, or in terms of checking it, should be entirely based on the Constitution and not based on any sort of
Oh my
biases.
god, I said that 6 months ago. I'm still fighting this stupid fucking argument. God damn it.
Yep. But it's true. They think that they are executive. They don't realize that they're judicial. In the name.
They said as much.
yo.
Today,
I'm gonna
apparently.
say some crazy shit. I don't see anything wrong with this warrant.
It's that last line. The only issue I had was the last line. The evidence, the amount of evidence. That
Oh
was in
my
that
god,
warrant, I
they
was
said
fine
it
with.
was
It's the last line.
reasonable.
That's the issue. When I raised this with Opal specifically, I talked to her about it. I talked about how to articulate that last line. Like that was the issue. I wouldn't have signed it. Because that would have been like, hey, you've got articulation issues. Go back and fix them. But it never should have got past with that last line being what it is.
Yeah, I agree, because that last line, and I'll read it for everybody here. So to summarize the warrant, Jason Letson was reported that his tourniquets were missing, got stolen in November, but from January to February, there are multiple cases, a shitload of cases of tourniquets with his serial number, like his state ID, on it. And there's a lot of different people, all of which are in proximity to him. So it's a raid warrant to find his stash of IFACs. I actually think part of that is a mistake. This should have been a financial check as well. I don't know why that's not on here. Because financial records would show the purchases, no? But
They should do, yes.
But either way, that makes it very reasonable and probable cause to raid because of these clearly being given out. But the last line reads, the police department believes it to be reasonable to assume he may
Which
have
lowers it
equipment.
below
Yeah.
which lowers it below probable cause to reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
Just by
Yeah.
articulation.
They got to say it. We believe beyond a reason, like not be, like we, yeah, whatever. There's.
How did I phrase this for Opal? I said something along the lines of the LSPD believes it is shown that it is more than probable from the evidence contained here from within this warrant that Jason Litson is hiding things within his home, and that's why we want to go search them. It's that
Yes.
simple, right? It's not that hard.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, I told Opal, but yeah, I don't know how any judge read that and wasn't like, "This is RS."
Well, ladies, gentlemen, anything else we want to discuss? I think we got a city to rebuild starting.
I think we do.
What how do we want to do this? Because I was going to be out tomorrow.
We'll do
Thursday?
then, I guess. Yeah, I'll
Thursday?
be around. When you
Okay.
when you make your announcement, I'll instantly endorse.
We could do it at the PD meeting.
No problem with me.
Yeah. And okay.
I'll make the plushies.
Hold on. Wait right here.